Good morning, bon dia. Thank you for being here once again, the last day. I hope you had a wonderful evening last night. It was very entertaining. Gentlemen, remember, Carnival is not yet. It was last night. Now, focus telecoms, okay? Focus. Okay, so today we're going to discuss global wholesale telco industry in the digital transformation era. My name is Elizabeth Simon. I'm partner at Cambridge Management Consulting. I was here yesterday, so I suspect a few of you already heard my voice. Once again, it's an honor to be moderating this panel with such wonderful professionals here. And thank you, Carrier community, for the opportunity of being here once again. Before we start, I'd like to invite our panelists to introduce themselves. So we'll start from you, please.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is José Luís Barros. I am 18 years at the industry, and now I'm the Director of Marketing at CV Telecom.
Hello, hola, good morning, everyone. I'm Alex Vavilov. I'm Market Manager Africa at Lang Telecom, and I'm in charge of Sub-Saharan Voice. Voice is still there, and I think we will be speaking about voice among other topics today.
Bon dia, good morning. My name is Adnan Ben Halima. I'm the Vice President in charge of public relations for Huawei in Central, North, and West Africa. I have been in this industry more than 20 years, and I'm very happy to be again in Cape Verde. We have a very nice country, and each time I come here, I feel fantastic. Really. So thank you very much for the invitation again. Thanks to CVT, and I wish we can have a good time together. Thank you.
I'm Martin Keller. I'm a managing partner at MGI. I'm responsible for voice and data services in Sub-Saharan Africa. And I really enjoyed my event here, and also our thanks to everybody who's organized it so fantastically. I know there's a tremendous amount of work that goes in, and to bring us all together, I think that's really a great achievement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Carlos Brito. I've been in the industry for over 20 years already. And it's a pleasure to be here as part of heritage of Cape Verde as well, Cabo Verde. Família que vem daqui também, então é orgulho. It's an honor for me to be here. And again, as my fellows panelists said, we are always well received here, and CV Telecom does a great job in putting this together, and also the carrier community. So thank you guys for having us here.
So just a reminder that we will have a few minutes at the end of the session for questions. So make sure that you keep your questions at hand and don't be shy to ask them, because our panelists will be very happy to answer any of your questions. So before I get stuck into my questions, I like to give some key pointers here that we can have at the front of our mind. Africa, 54 countries. It's a territory larger than US, Europe, and China combined. I mentioned yesterday 1.4 billion people. It's the world's second most populated continent after Asia. Young population. I think we touched on this yesterday. 60% of the population is within the working age bracket. 15 to 64 years. It would be good to have such numbers in Europe. Africa is rapidly emerging as a significant player in the technology and telecommunications landscape. It's experienced the most rapid international internet bandwidth, growing at a compound natural annual rate of 41% over the last 4 years. And just as a pointer, Asia grew at 28%. And in the middle of all this, we've got a new era starting, AI. So my first question to our panelists is, what's the future of AI in Africa?
AI is beginning to change many sectors in Africa, like finance, healthcare, agriculture, and also telecom are all seeing that AI drive innovation. AI such powered solutions such as chatbot in telecom and fraud detection in mobile banking are already seeing. Countries like South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, Rwanda, and Egypt are leading this trend with government supporting, tech hub, and incubators. However, as you mentioned, most of internet users still rely on 2G and 3G, even 4G coverage 73% of all the region. As you know, 5G combined with AI can unlock many opportunities. But the mostly used 4G is on Southern and Northern Africa. In my perspective, for Africa to build a sustainable digital future, it is not enough to expand internet connectivity. Some challenge remains, and must be solved. There is shortage of AI and machine learning experts. Also, the weak regulation in many regions are a problem for the trust in AI technology, and people also must access to useful application and skills to use them effectively.
Yeah, well, obviously the market, the voice market is definitely changing, right? With Volta, especially in Europe, with satellites in the voice. I don't think it was discussed enough for the voice specifically yesterday. I think that can also revolutionize the market big time, though I'm sure voice was there and it will be there. I can later tell why. Speaking about AI, I mean, I guess first of all, it will definitely help and revolutionize a lot of stuff. But the right answer, the right question is already more than half of the answer, right? So you need to know what you want to do. And from the company perspective, we at Lang have been doing AI for like already in anti-fraud for I would say probably almost 10 years already. So before it became a buzzword in the industry, we have PhD colleagues who, going a little bit in details, have been doing the A and B number ranges with specific algorithm, so that there is as less false positive in the fraud detection, and the least possible legitimate traffic is blocked. So this is what we have been doing already, and it's getting improved. And yeah, I also know that now we are implementing to track the AI to optimize the trouble tickets, because that takes a lot of human resources.
Thank you. Well, to answer this question, I would like first to start to ask a question to the audience. Who among you think that he already used AI in his life? You can raise the hand. Well, it's good. Actually, the reality is that all of us should raise hand, because all of us we used AI, no matter voluntary or involuntary. We are using AI every day. Okay. Starting from this fact, the question is not AI is useful or not. AI will replace human intelligence or not. No. But the new fact, which is a little bit difficult to admit, is that humans with AI will dominate humans without AI. I'm sorry to say this. AI is not a choice anymore. AI now is present in all sectors of life: health, transportation, energy, education, industry, finance, everywhere. AI is not a finality. AI is just a tool to be more efficient, more quick, more fast. Okay? It's just a tool. So if I have a metaphor, we will compare people in the next decade going to the same direction. One with a camel, one is with a plane. And even this metaphor is not enough to show the difference between people using AI and people not using AI. So this is a fact. This is our era. Okay? And now if we come back to our reality in Africa, we should understand that we don't have any choice except going to this. And in order to talk about AI, we need to talk about data strategy. AI without data cannot work. We always need data to deal with AI. So having a data strategy means what? Means having the right connectivity to access data. Having the right platforms, access data, it's within the country and outside of the country. So that's why the international connectivity is very important. The inside connectivity of the country is very important. And then we need to have platforms to store data, data centers, and platforms to process data, clouds. This should be, every country should have a clear vision on how to deal with this data strategy from end to end. But it's not enough. We also should have the people, the right people to deal with it. That's why having qualified people, prepare our young people to this is very important at the education stage. Still not enough, because our young talent people, they go to other countries. And this is the fact in Africa. They're going to US, they're going to Europe, because here they cannot find how to practice this. That's why we need to build an ecosystem to support startups, to support young people to practice AI. And believe me, in our countries, I'm also from Africa, everything is to be done in all scenarios. So we just need to have space to feed the startups to start to develop AI in our countries. Okay? So ecosystem creation is very important. Government contribution, telecom operators to build infrastructure, private sector, education sector, all of them, they should create ecosystem to deal with AI. But to finalize, sorry, I was too long, AI is not a choice anymore, it's a must. Thank you.
Yeah. I think what my colleague Adnan just said, I think is touching some very important points. I think AI is just a topic which is very present, is get a lot of attention. But I think what we see from our side is that there is actually a big revolution going on the data access side. I think which is going on a much more quiet level. I think it's not so observed very much, but particularly in the area of satellite technology, there has been some fantastic progress. I think we all know these big antennas, 30 meter with an elevator built in from the old times with limited capacity. Maybe some of you have used Starlink. You put a shoebox on your roof. Suddenly you have 100 megabit of access in the middle of nowhere. There is Ka-band satellites that we are using very successfully in Africa on small antennas of this 1 meter diameter installed in a few hours. And I think this combining is basically exactly giving this kind of data layer, which then allows us to bring AI to the people and to underserved areas, giving the opportunity to bring the education to areas which have not been, properly trained teachers. Suddenly, you can have areas with e-learning, giving the young people a chance to really build the knowledge that is required to actually use AI. And I think there's a fantastic revolution going in place that we see outside of the city centers, which have always been covered very well with 5G. And I think this is a tremendous change, and I think it's a technology that is extremely suitable for Africa because it allows us to have it independent without big investment to bring fantastic data rates into places and opening us these new possibilities.
Thank you. Well, not a lot for me to say after great interventions from my colleagues here, but I want to complement a little bit especially what Adnan said, which is very on the topic. AI is about data access, and it's about accelerating the access to that data, organizing that access to that data, not only the data but also metadata, which is the data of the data, right? And without that, you cannot build models that are going to help you in achieve whatever you're going after, right? It might be in our industry, or it might be in other industries. So if you don't have a few steps organizing that data or being able to generate data in such a form, in a way that you can collect, understand, process, and act upon that data, you're not going to have a very effective utilization of the technology. How we do that? So there are a few other points also that our folks here with me mentioned. Things around the tools that they're going to use, and the process of and the people that are going to be using that data to accelerate the utilization of AI. So preparing that foundation to leverage the utilization of AI in your industry is very important. And how you prepare that? You actually have to go through what we call, the industry is calling digital transformation, which is to get all the layers of the hardware evolved, to get the people that are work in your networks evolved to a different level of understanding of the technology, and get all those elements as a foundation for you to have the AI working. So data access, evolution of your hardware to more cloud native solutions, and then getting the people with the understanding and the knowledge to accelerate the utilization of AI. So it's a long process. I'm just trying to summarize everything that was said, but it's a path without a return. We're already in that path, and Africa also is important in this journey that we're seeing. MTN is one of the most, I would say, a little bit more accelerated on that process in the region, in our region here. But other companies like Orange, other Vodafone in some of the countries are also accelerating the digital transformation. That's the way that I just described to you guys.
Yeah, thank you. So AI is here already. It's in the continent, and the train is ongoing, and you have to jump on the train and accelerate, as you were saying, all the process. I don't think we can talk about AI without talking about cybersecurity. We talked about it on the session, one of the sessions yesterday. I think it's in the lips of all the players really in the industry. And when we think that the cybercrime is the third largest economy on the planet, it's certainly worth us talking a few minutes about cybersecurity and what it means in Africa. I mean, should players in this ecosystem be concerned about it already, or what are your thoughts?
Cybersecurity is a growing concern in Africa, especially that continent assists a rapid digital transformation, experiences a mobile connectivity increased, and expansion of financial service. According to the African Cybersecurity Report 2018, cyber crimes include fraud, voice, and mobile money, cost the African economies $3.5 billion in 2017. So this is a huge concern, but in part it's occur because the many operators still rely on old IT systems that are easier for criminals to exploit. You are in the digital era when the personal data are the new fuel to drive much of our online activity, and without trust in AI system technology, the potential of growth of economy digital will be, limited.
Yeah, well, indeed, I would say that cybersecurity and fraud and prevention of fraud is not like installation of something in your perimeter or like a solution. It's a constant process, right? I remember last year that was one of the telecom sessions, and there were discussions about RCS. So RCS was not fully implemented yet, but there were already fraud scenarios related to that, right? And I'm sure that AI, I do totally agree that it's, I mean, you mentioned it very, very right, that on the global scale, it's an inevitable process, right? But I'm sure there will be also a lot of fraud cases related to that. And with data protection and all that. Speaking about from the telco MNO perspective, I mean, usually what people think is PBX hacking or hijacking, right? Because this is what is seen. But in fact, most of in many cases, more volumes are lost on the inbound volumes, international refiling, manipulation of the numbers, et cetera, gray routes. And now I think with the ECOWAS no roaming area, that's something like new concerns might be there as well. We've seen, like personally, a lot of fraud cases in the Eastern Africa when there was the one network area there. But this line I want to finish on a positive note that sometimes it's easier to implement something from scratch, seeing already the best practices, the best cases in the industry. Because to modernize, you have to have the return on investment and all that. But seeing the practices, I think that's could be, yeah. I want to end on this phrase on the positive. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I would like to start by thanking Jose to remind us some figures. The impact of cybersecurity in Africa. Thank you very much, because I heard yesterday one of the panelists saying that cybersecurity is not so dangerous for Africa. Who will hack $50 from an African person? I think this is really ridiculous. So thank you for reminding this. The impact of cybersecurity is more than $5 billion. It's attacking the banking systems, operators, insurance, government, all the sectors. And something maybe why we are not so aware about this, because there is silence. Banks, when they get attacked, they don't communicate because they worry about their reputation. But the fact is that the impact is huge in Africa. It's really huge. Thank you again, Jose, for reminding us. Now, if we link AI with cybersecurity, now, till few years ago, we are facing cybersecurity coming from people. But now we are facing cybersecurity attacks from AI itself. We will never face it by a human capability. Okay, you cannot face AI attack with just human capability. You should adopt AI also to defend yourself. And the best way to defend yourself is to be on a proactive mode. Not wait for the attack to defend. Proactivity is the key word in cybersecurity. Again, AI is very important for this topic. And so this is the first point. Second point, AI itself is a good tool, okay? But as any tool in the world can have the dark face. AI can be used for very bad scenarios, for deep fakes, for whatever. And the point now is that we can have cybersecurity attacks with AI programmed in advance, long time in advance. How? If we train AI algorithm with wrong data, okay, it will have wrong results. And we don't know this. We think that we are using AI, everything is fine, our data is there, everything is good. But if we don't pay attention to the data security, to the data sources, to the data structure, we can train our own soldiers, our own AI, to be against us, to produce fake things. So this is another challenge also for AI and cybersecurity topic. I will stop here. Thank you.
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, I think we all have seen these AI-generated pictures which are giving us a fake reality, looking extremely plausible sometimes. I think fraud is always an arms race. We always have to. It's a mentality that we have to build up. We have to always be aware. We have to be critical to things that are presented to us, and we can never sleep. I think it's been always the case with fraud, and I think it will always be the case. From our experience, in the way we are working in our company, we are particularly subject to voice fraud in the international wholesale fraud. We're using 3 different systems to kind of curb the fraud. I think one of the main sources is this, what we call Vangiri callback fraud. We have a whole team that is busy with finding algorithms that are preventing this kind of fraud, blocking the calls, And of course, it's a continuous battle, because the way we are blocking it, and the fraudsters find always a way of bypassing it. Maybe they find out what kind of minimum samples we use to kind of detect fraud, so they will kind of work around. But it's something I think we get pretty much under control. And I think the other thing, what we also learned, is that I think the biggest way to destroy fraud is to kind of destroy it economically. It's like when you have SIM card fraud, you need to act faster than it is the cost for example, the fraudsters to buy SIM cards. If you're faster than they can create, and you destroy the economic basis of the fraud, that is the way to get rid of it. Otherwise, it is something that completely always will be around and always is waiting for you to hit you. But I think if we've managed that in a couple of instances to really take away the basis of it, and that is really what gives you the long-term security. I think that is destroying the economic basis of the fraud and taking away the economic incentive. This is what will bring the benefit, rather than some actions that you see on television and usually fraudsters presented, and so that is not something that will actually finally get rid of. So I think that is really what we have to aim for.
It's a good point. I think that's just complementing a little bit what my fellow panelists already said. There are a few elements in this discussion that are important, and one of them is really regulation, right? So when I think we are not doing, as a society, not one state or another, but overall, it's taking only too long for us to get to the, to the regulatory decisions around pretty much everything, but specifically about security and the prevention of, the cyber crimes and cyber attacks. Technology that are being available, they are taking too long to be decided to be utilized, like things like DPI, deep packet inspection, that was utilized for many years. It took us forever to really understand how to regulate that. And we always playing catch up, as just Martin mentioned. We are always, going after what's already in place. So it's taking too long for us as a society. And that works for previous technology, and that works also for AI. Once you have that taken care of, there is a component of enforcement that's going to be very well associated, very well related to the economics of things. Sometimes you don't want to, spend $1 to prevent a 5-cent, fraud. So if the fraud actually gets to a point that it's impacting your business continuity, absolutely is going to be your top priority. And for those cases, you're going to see companies, entities not, regulating the amount of capex or opex that's going to be put into those solutions. So for me, there are two components important here. One is the regulation, and the other one is how fast we can take into those new technologies put in place for to react to those environments. Sure.
Thank you very much for your comments here. And what you're saying is that, as opposed to what was said yesterday, cyber crime is here and needs to be acted and proactively acted upon. Regulation, as you're saying, needs to be worked through, use the experience of other countries so that we can accelerate what can be done over here. I'd like to move on to the theme of automation. We know it exists, things are being done by the various players around Africa, but is it at the same level as we're seeing globally? And I'll start with you, please, Carlos.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a topic that really important, and it's really happening everywhere. Very associated to the AI buzzword, as Alexander mentioned. This is also a little bit of a buzzword around automation, but is a reality, right? And automation has been taking different understanding from different people. It might mean something for one group of people and something else for a different group of people. But it's really what I use to illustrate when I'm talking about automation is the autonomous car, right? It's really something that started, years, maybe 20 years ago, and it was becoming reality. And now it's a reality in many markets. You actually have some places that taxis are, are self-driven. There is no anybody driving the car, which it was years ago something that was hard to conceive, to understand. And the same is going to be applied to telecommunications. As we are going forward in this journey, we're going to be seeing, and not that far, don't believe that's too far from us, some of the networks are going to be self-provisioned, self-implemented, that's going to be self-operated, and also with the troubleshooting that's going to be completely automated. That's the autonomous network. So TM Forum has that figured out already. So there are 4, you can call 5 levels of maturity in that journey to the next layer, which is the layer 5 of that journey, being the autonomous network. So that network, nobody's going to touch that network. So from those different layers, you can apply, actually it's already online, a self-assessment tool from TM Forum for your own network. And then you're going to understand what layer or level of maturity your network is, right? And based on that assessment, you developed a plan, a program to get to the autonomous network. That might be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, depends on how you're going to accelerate that process. But first you do an assessment, you understand not only the network itself, but also your personnel, your tools, and how you are sitting in that journey. You define that, and then you define a plan to go step by step to get to autonomous network. Answer your question precisely, how Africa is in that journey comparing to the rest of the world. There's not a lot of companies that are in layer 5 or level 5 of maturity, which is completely autonomous network. There is none, 0. Layer 4, also nobody's there in terms of service providers worldwide. There are a few of them going from 2 to 3, right? And I believe that also Africa is in that same level of maturity. Some of the service providers, as I mentioned before, MTN, some of the operations of Vodafone, they have a good part of the operations already automated. So I don't think that Africa is catching up or it's too far from any of the service providers in Europe or North America. I believe that they're going to get there first because of the amount of capital that's being invested in some of those operations. Vodafone also is very well advanced in that journey. But the Africa, in average, are really pretty much at par with the other operations worldwide.
Thank you.
And sorry to be so long on this one. Fashion.
Martin, what do you see? You're on the ground and you work with a lot of players in a number of countries. So what's your perspective?
I think automation is, we're in a very highly competitive industry here. I think cost is what drives competitiveness here. I think automation is going to be a reality. We all have to follow it to keep our overhead and our cost under control and to remain competitive. I think it is something that is inevitable for all of us to reduce the manual input, which is relatively expensive, has a high labor cost, is not as efficient as automation. I think there's no way around. So I think in our areas where we are active, we don't see automation so much yet because we don't have standardized products yet. A lot of it are bespoke services. They're one-off projects, very, very strongly tailored, which of course makes it even harder to automate. I think when you have a very big network with thousands or millions of identical or similar clients, I think that is something that is much easier to automate than highly tailored, highly bespoke networks that I think that the market that we're working in.
Thank you. Well, for automation, I think automation should touch several scenarios, right? In the industry or the economy, whatever. But we should ask ourselves the question, what is the driver of automation? As my colleague said, in Europe, for example, automation is a matter of cost, a matter of competitiveness, a matter of saving time. I don't think this is our reality in Africa. Cost of manpower is much cheaper than other regions. time definition is different from other regions. I will not say more about that. Okay? We don't have big industries. So I don't say that we do not need automation. No, we need automation, for example, just to fight against corruption. Wherever there is human intervention, there will be abuses. This is number one scenario of application in Africa, at least to prevent corruption. And if we can go further for some industrial scenarios to be more cost effective, it's better. But it's not the main driver for the moment. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, well, automation can mean different things. I mean, up until recently, a lot of telecom players in Africa, linking that to the previous fraud theme, could see the fraudulent traffic only when there was the invoice issued, right? So it's a long journey with OSS, BSS billing, and all that. Right. Speaking about the human factor, I do agree, and at the same time, I do not agree in the part that sometimes maybe I'm a little bit too old school with AI, but I'm sure that people will be there, still involved big time. And I mean, having the interconnects with the operators, there could be some technical issues, codec issues, equipment issues, people and different scenarios. Sometimes very weird scenarios are involved. Or if we will have time to speak about the voice fraud cases, I will also mention a case where only the manual test calls are the only way to make sure that's that's a fraud case. So automation definitely yes, but and at the end of the day, people work with people, right? So I'm sure there's a lot of room for automation, but still not in every scenario. Probably a little bit philosophical in that sense.
In my perspective, automation is growing in Africa, but not in the same level that more than other developed markets as North America, Europe, or part of Asia. Developed markets have well-established fiber network, cloud infrastructure, and AI-driven innovation. Whereas in Africa, many markets rely on legacy system. Many African operators still use older and manual process for service setup, billing, and network management. As Carlos said, some large operators in Africa, like MTN, Vodacom, and Airtel, starting to use AI for network optimization and predictive maintenances. CV Telecom as well, we start to use some tool of AI for network optimization, but we don't see many cases of African operators to use AI. Some countries like Nigeria, South Africa, and Kenya are making huge progress in automation, supported by growth of data center, cloud computer for a large company like Microsoft and Google. However, we still with many problems of AI shortage and AI and machine learning, weak regulation, limited automatization.
Quite a few challenges to overcome still. And talking about challenges, I'd like to move on to the subject of the digital divide, which unfortunately is very present still in Africa. And the UN agency reported that 38% of the population in Africa has access to internet versus to 91% in Europe. So it's a huge gap. And what do you see is happening to make this digital divide shorter, or find a way to make it shorter? Adnan.
Okay. To answer this question, we need to think from both sides. We need to think about infrastructure availability to the people who are not connected. And also we need to think about these people who would like to be connected, with which kind of device they could be connected. So from both sides, okay? Now in every country, the operators are building the network in every country, this infrastructure of connectivity. Of course, there are some zones that are not commercially beneficial for operators. Naturally, it's not, I mean, they will not do it. Then I think the government, they should have the responsibility to intervene to cover what we call the white zones. This habit, I mean, this practice is in every country. The government will drive this coverage to provide the coverage to this population, where it's not commercially beneficial to the operators. Okay, this is first. Second, shortage for infrastructure is in many countries in Africa, the prerequisite of telecom is energy. Energy is not available. So we should find solution to energy in order to provide telecom service. In this case, I will not say, I mean, because I'm from Huawei, but infrastructure providers like Huawei, we did find the solutions for this. And now we are providing self-energy making sites, 3G, 4G sites. They produce their own energy on site with the solar or wind or whatever and cover the population. So there are solutions for this. The third point is if we think from device, because you know the population worldwide, I mean we are using the same devices, but the purchase power is different. Okay, it's not the same purchase power in Europe, in Asia, in Africa. So here the device is somehow expensive for the people. Here is even it's matching 1 month's salary or even more, several months' salary of one person in a rural area to buy a smartphone. So this is something that we can solve by time, because there is a depreciation phenomena happening. The price is decreasing, but also the government can do something by reducing fiscality or taxation on devices. In some countries where really would like to push things to connect the unconnected, they remove tax on computers, personal laptops, smartphones, and CPs. It could be done. And I don't think this is a big lack of money for the governments. Okay? Also having new kind of technologies with a wider coverage, it's also another way to do this. Satellite industry will contribute also, but they need to be clear which area they would like to target. Okay? I'm sorry for that. Okay, so I think the discussion will depend on several orientations, but definitely there are solutions. And something is good in Africa is that the connectivity percentage is growing and the consumption of data per person is growing. And this will be accelerating in Africa, at least from Huawei perspective. We think that this is the biggest growing potential market worldwide, because there is a big gap already. This is first. Second, the population will be booming. Actually, in Africa, by 2050, the population will be double. And by 2050, one young person under 25, in Africa will be 1/2 young people worldwide. Half of the young people will be in Africa. Okay? And the third phenomena is that there is a big urbanization phenomenon happening in Africa. People, they are moving from rural to urban area. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's a fact. Okay? So this urbanization also is contributing to the increase of usage of digital and the connectivity, etc. So there is something naturally is coming, but also there are solutions that we can do now to connect the unconnected. Thank you.
Perhaps I'll ask Martin to follow up on the. We were talking about this earlier this morning, and you had plenty of things to say about what is happening.
No, I think what Huawei does with these rural stations, I think, is a fantastic thing, and also I think by combining them with satellite backhaul, I think it can be a real game changer, because you can deploy GSM coverage to large areas which completely underserved before, and in a very effective way. I mean, I'm very excited kind of on the progress I see on the satellite industry. There is such a technology change happening now. We have now antennas we can put on cars, which are automatically pointing continuously the geo or the LEO satellites, which seem to come out straight out of a sci-fi movie. I mean, when you see how these with these antennas actually coordinate and work together and follow the satellites over the horizon, I think it's really something impressive to see. If you ever have a chance to go to a demonstration of LEO antennas, I think it is really worth looking at it. I think, in my opinion, we're going to see a kind of a similar transformation that we have seen in the GSM world, going from 2G, 3G to 5G services. And I think really the big advantage of satellite services is that you don't need a local loop. Fiber optics is a fantastic technology to transport huge data, but it is also like a motorway. Whenever you want to get off, you need to cut it, you need to put ADMs in, you need to convert it from optical to electrical. It's a complicated process. With satellite, you can bring the signal straight to the user without having the cost of fiber to the home. And in my home country, Switzerland, I'm getting fiber to the home next year. I mean, that's about 35 years after internet started. I mean, this is how long it takes. Yeah. It does. No, okay. I mean, the work that it actually takes to take fiber to the user is just incredible. I mean, we have taken all these intermediate technology like DSL, using the old copper wires, what they call, I think, these transmitter stations in the areas. And so I think 5G is a fantastic technology to overcome that access in an urban area. But I think for the underserved areas, I think satellite, we're going to see a lot more coming out of it. And it is. I mean, I've seen some development of these phase array antennas. I mean, they're really amazing stuff. Yeah. So really exciting what can happen there. Yeah.
Sorry, just a comment. Just a comment to Martin. You are right. If satellite industry is there to complement missing parts, it's very good. Yeah, I would like to be very clear about that. If it's to complement till the operators, they will do their job to connect by fiber or by 5G, it's very good. But at country level, if satellite in long term will replace operators, it's very dangerous. For security of the country, for the sovereignty of the country. I'm sorry to say that, but as a complementary to connect the unconnected is good. This is the right scenario. But attacking the urban areas now to replace operators, it's very dangerous. Sorry for that.
Yeah, so I think it's relative. Everything is dangerous. So no, it's a good argument, right? But it's dangerous. Some people use the argument the other way around. Say, I'm not gonna buy Chinese equipment in my country because it's dangerous. And people are using that in the United States. So Chinese equipment is not entering the United States. Is that reason correct or not? Debatable, because I don't think so. My personal thing, I think that it could be open competition and whatever orange of the technology could be utilized. But there are some points that you have to look at. So I think that argument might be revisited. So we have to agree to disagree on this one. But put that aside, the discussions of the digital gap, which is the source of the discussion here, the question comes from that. There are a lot of things already in place and in many of different countries in the world. So there is one fund that are called Universalization Fund, and a lot of countries are doing that, which consists of service providers like CV taking a percentage of their income annually and put aside to address exactly that. So they take 2%, 1% of the income of the service providers and create a fund. And that fund is supposed to be utilized to get access to people that they have not access to the telecommunications, right? Which sounds great, right? So 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, pass through, and then you're gonna look into that number. It has to be a huge number, because if you get Brazil, for instance, right, with over like 4 major operators getting more than 50 million users, each one of those operators generating billions of dollars annually, So you get a percentage of that money. And when you see after 10 years, it's a lot of money. But what has been done with that fund? Nothing. And then why? Corruption. So you get the money, the idea is great, but the execution of that idea just doesn't happen because there is a lot of corruption, not only in that country that I'm mentioning right now, which is Brazil, where I came from, but all over the world. So there are some mechanisms that are in place, but executing those are the difficult here. The technology that we're going to be using, debatable. It can be satellite. It can be, part satellite, part terrestrial with fiber and other means. We can use microwave for that. Doesn't really matter. We can discuss that. But the means to do that has to be thought through and executed as planned. So otherwise, not going to happen in Africa or any other place in the world, primarily because of corruption. But ideas are there, and there are a few things that are happening now. Some successful things, not everything's terrible. There are good things happening, and I see projects happening because I talk to a lot of people, I visit a lot of countries, and I see things happening, addressing that digital gap, but can be much better than we are. In the root cause for many things are corruption.
Perhaps it needs to be faster.
And also faster than what we are doing.
Yeah, not really much what I can add, but I think with internet, that's a very good example to what I mentioned, that sometimes it's easier to see the best practices in other places and implement them right away. For the satellites, I think for the rural areas, that will be definitely, hopefully, a life changer. But then with the people moving from the rural areas to the cities, as far as I understand, the capacity won't be enough, especially with the growing population. So I think that unless there will be new technologies, there still be traditional operators and traditional voice as well in the cities. But for the rural area, satellite it could be a life changer. And on voice, actually, let's see what will be happening with the industry. But it might be again an instrument, because voice, SMS, that's all instruments that should be used when they should be used better, right? So that's.
Satellite can be a great complement with our current infrastructure, but must be careful in where use it. Okay, come to Africa. Africa, 2/3 of Africans do not use internet mobile today around. Maybe I can share what we in Cape Verde Telecom were doing to bring connectivity for the underserved area. We are investing in fiber network. Now 37% of our subscribers are in fiber network. We plan to achieve 50% at the end of these years. We are to use the AirPON with a complement to fiber network, and we planning start to use fixed wireless access as a cost-effective solution in an area where the fiber is not feasible. We have inter-island fiber with redundancies, which is very important. We invest in 2 submarine cable, LA-Link and WAX now, to bring more international connectivity and improve data speed. We have, or we're still building a neutral data center for reduce latencies. Our government can bring Cape Verde as a digital island. With our data center, we reduce latency and improve a digital service for the business and consumer. Regarding to the mobile, 19% of our population have 4G coverage, and we making in past November, a showcase by 5G. So we use many technology combined to serve the population.
There was I'm just curious to hear from you, but I was reading an analysis that reported that Starlink was cheaper here in this country by 23% on the communications. Is that right?
Starlink in Cape Verde, indeed, they have 2 different package. One 35 euros, it's less than our unlimited offer, and they have order one 15 euros. There is much expensive than our internet unlimited. The advantage is the coverage, national coverage. This is the reason why, I mean, said we have to be careful for the license. The regulator proved to the Starlink. In many other African countries, they don't have authorization for provide service. In countries like Africa countries with weak infrastructure, Starlink can be a huge problem for the sustainability of the operators.
Thank you very much. Just moving on, and Alex, you've got the microphone. Excellent, because you touch about voice decline, not what's happening in Africa.
Well, I mean, please raise your hands who has seen the Matrix movie. So yeah, I think then you remember that the only way out of the Matrix was through the payphones, through the voice. But yeah, jokes aside, yeah, voice is still there. There are just less exits from the Matrix. I mean, the business is transforming, obviously. But there are new streams of traffic arising. Like a big trend we see is that with so many generated volumes in SMS and with the inflated rates, there are more demands for the voice routes, not just flash calls, but also pin-to-speech, or I mean, whatever you call it. And then there are new business. Actually, some businesses need to call their customers when voice is still a great instrument. That's the bottom line, and it's transforming, it's changing, but it's still there. So the short answer is like that.
Thank you. I think the trend is the same everywhere. Voice is declining, data is rising, and I think now most of operators worldwide, their revenue structure from data versus voice is changing. Data revenue is becoming more than voice. And I think this will be accelerating sooner. Why? Actually, do you know what is the biggest asset of operators? The most important asset for operators is frequencies, right? Many operators now, they are discussing whether to shut down 2G or 3G. Why? To reuse these frequencies in newer technology, in 4G, 5G, whatever. It's just a matter of time. And this is only depending on the type of devices that people are using. If still people, they have more than 10% in the country using legacy phones for 2G, it's difficult to shut down. But once we reach 10% of the total park, less than 10% using the legacy phones, the operator can do one operation for 1 or 2 years to replace these legacy phones by smartphones and push the people to use data directly and forget about voice. So it's just a matter of time. But this process is different from country to another one. Some countries, we can find that the park of legacy phones is more than 30%. Some countries, it's just 5%. This depends on the purchase power of the people, on the taxation, on the smartphones, etc., and that data penetration. But definitely the trend is clear. Voice is disappearing and replacing by data, and the OTT, they are playing this game also. Thanks.
Thank you.
I think, we analyzed kind of the voice traffic, and I think it's exactly like you're saying. I think what we see is, let's say, for example, from Lisbon to Kinshasa, voice traffic has completely died out. Because on both sides we have 4G, 5G networks, a lot of mobile, a lot of smartphone applications. We cannot compete against WhatsApp. WhatsApp is free, it's great quality. There is no need to use traditional voice. But there is still a big part, and especially remote parts of the continent are served by 2G networks. And I think as long as one of the sites only has 2G, that will result that the only connectivity that can be done is through voice. And I think there is a slow decline. Every year there is a couple of percent lowering, but I think what's quite interesting is it's quite resistant as well. If you had asked me 20 years ago, I would have said by 2010 there's no more voice. Now we're 2025, and there is still substantial voice. I think voice will be like fax. We all think we use it, it's there, and one day it will be gone, very quietly. And I think it's just it will just drop off. It will get too small to kind of serve, but I think this date is still pretty far away. I think now looking at it, I think we still have another 10 years of life in it. It's a surprisingly resistant thing like SMS. I mean, it should have died out a long time ago, but it's still there. It's expensive to run these networks, but it's incredibly resistant. Yeah. So I think we can enjoy it for a few years more to come. Yeah.
I don't have much to add here on this topic. I agree with Martin here. I think that's going to stick around for a little more. The voice, primarily for the older generations that are still used to do that, and they're gonna stick with that form of communication for a little while, but eventually it's going to die out over years. So we don't know how many years, but it's going to happen. The point that Adnan mentioned about dropping the 3G, 2G, those frequencies are important. That's going to happen, but there are a few particular things that might happen. For instance, in one example, one of service provider, and I have that data. I cannot say the name of the service provider is actually under NDA, but they were analyzing to shut down the 2G to reutilize the wireless, the frequency, and they discovered that 10 million point of sales POS were actually rely on that technology to be utilized. So exactly, just it's a very strange size. So they need that technology to stick on, and they could not drop that the frequency. And they are still using 2G. Potentially, they're gonna turn off the 3G before the 2G because of that. And those things sometimes they happen, and they happen more frequently than we possibly think.
Guilherme, what is your perspective?
I think I can add everything you all say. The voice are still there, transforming, adapting. The consumer use voice now with OTT. It's the messenger, WhatsApp is more easier, more cheaper. So the operators, what we doing now is making some package with data, voice, to improve voice. We put voice on net free, but the data is the main service the customer need. But the voice still there. We'll adapting.
Apologies, I called you Guilherme, but you're José, really. Remaining on the theme of the voice, and our last subject here is voice leakage. And I think, Alex, when we talked about this, you had quite a lot to say about it.
Yes, well, just a little comment for the previous point that, especially in the rural areas, as was discussed before, the satellites are there. Sometimes that's the only way to reach people, right? Yet, but overall, yes, the voice is declining and changing. So for the leakages, I think we already discussed the anti-fraud points. Should I go for the scenarios with the anti-fraud with the cases? Yes. Well, I mean, Vanguir was mentioned today, like with the banks and with the that type of fraud. Around 6 years ago, my cybersecurity colleagues found a case which was massive in the industry. I think now it's already, the term is used, Vanguir 2.0. That's business-related Vanguir. So basically, banks were mentioned. It's banks, it could be taxi apps, whatever. So what is happening? The fraudsters are leaving their numbers in the forms, callback forms, whatever the case might be. And the enterprises are calling back because they have the KPIs, they have the budgets. And it's not just about, if we speak about banks, that they don't want to tell that publicly that they were attacked by fraud. But also in the short and the medium run, sometimes the enterprises are happy, they're reaching the customers, the operators are happy, they're having the revenues, but it's not a sustainable model. So that's one case, Vangiru 2.0. One other fraud scenario is call stretching or smart fuss. I mean, we all know about fuss when we call someone and there is nothing, silence, which is charged, and either the person is paying for that or the operator, but it's lost anyway. With the smart fuss, even being in the telecom industry myself, when I first experienced that, I didn't realize what is happening. I was calling a person, and then I could, like after 2 minutes of the conversation, there was hello, and the person I was calling was repeating her words, right? So I couldn't say, I thought it's bad connection. But apparently, the fraudsters sometimes are adding the recording of the person, and you just think it's bad connection or something. And sometimes it's happening after 3, 4, 5 minutes. And I was mentioning today that there are certain cases which could not be automated. For that smart fuss, we could not make a fully automation yet. So just to make sure that if something's fishy, we have some triggers, red flags, but then we always try that manually, because at the end of the day, that's the only way to make sure that's really smart fast. And it's hard to try because it's sometimes on like 3-5% of the calls, not on all necessarily, right? And probably one more example, I think that's the most peculiar one, the most I like, it's when I think it was almost 10 years ago then first heard that and experienced that, is when you're calling a person and there are real call centers with people answering in the same time zone, in the same language, but where the calls are much, much cheaper. And you call the person, you're answered by a fake person in a fake call center made specifically for that. So, I mean, there are very weird scenarios for fraud. And yeah, that having said, we try to automate that and use AI proactively as much as we can, because yeah, it's a constant process. So, but there are way more scenarios. I just picked the 3 because I'm sure we have other points to discuss. But yeah, indeed, yeah.
No, I will just pass through.
No, I think the fraudsters are really a great example of creativity. I mean, that is something so, which also makes it kind of hard, and you need to have the people with the right mindset kind of hitting the fraud. They need to be people that can think out of the box and think. I mean, one of the cases we also had. I mean, there used to be this mailbox fraud. So when you call the number, you would say, "Thank you for calling." Then the number, please leave your message after beep. Of course, it was just a recording, and the mailbox was never really reached. You know, so it was just a way of generating duration. So I think it is there, but it is something I think that the whole industry has learned a lot. I mean, I think this has been going on now for a long time. We all had to learn through many stages, as you say. I think we have 10 years, probably even longer. So I think there's a lot of experience now. There's a way of dealing with this, and it's always a kind of, I think at the moment from what we see is that the fraud is kept to a very low level. It's a noise on the bottom, but it's not something, you know. I think from the Simbox fraud, for example, we get down to less than 1% of the total volumes now. It's always popping up. At the moment you switch off the system, it would come back immediately. But it can be curbed to a level that it really doesn't affect the customer. It is not noticeable in the quality, and it is not something that actually hampers the business. But of course, it needs a lot of resources, it needs a lot of teams, it needs dedication to keep it that way. I think it's a bit like antibiotics, you know. So the medicine is there. You need to make sure it's well managed, and then it's very highly effective. But my God, if you let it go, I think the whole thing will flip in a very short time. So vigilance, I think, is really what's important here.
I don't have much to add as well. The only thing that I still believe we can find ways to prevent fraud, and you know, by doing some processes and scripts that are going to prevent some of the frauds, and compare and learn using machine learning, also algorithms that are going to be able to do that. There, Alexander mentioned there are a few of them that are more difficult than others, but you can actually just do the 20-80 right rule here and get 80% of the problem within the taken care of, and the rest you have to deal with that. So that's my only point.
So we're coming to the end of our session. Before we open up to questions, I'd just like to add or ask just one more comment from each of you. Hope or what keeps you up at night? Thinking about, the themes we've been talking about and the wholesale industry here.
I will say the concern about Starlink for our reality, because we are investing hard for the fiber network. We deploy 4G, and we didn't have a return of the investment, but maybe next year or 2 years, we will invest in 5G. As I say, for the small countries like Cape Verde, we with a few population, the Starlink could be very danger for the local operators, because as you say, they have now one package with lower price than our main unlimited offer by fiber, with global coverage in terms of country. So that is a problem that the regulator and also the operators will be facing.
Well, I mean, the market is changing, obviously. Like people were thinking that the OTT WhatsApp will kill the voice, but I mean, Volta is doing that in some regions faster than WhatsApp. Then there are, I mean, a lot of the regulations can revive the voice or kill it to a big extent, or I mean the Starlink, the satellites. So we have a very interesting time, and I think we just need to be AI. We need to be adaptive as much as we can, and because the industry is obviously changing. Yeah, so that's positive and negative, both.
Thank you. Again, I can only agree with Jose about satellite industry. Again, as a complementary is good, but it should never replace operators. I'm very clear about that. At the same time, this giving a challenge to operators to provide response to citizens who needs connectivity, because we cannot say no without alternative. So that's why all of us, we need to work together how to densify the 4G network, to prepare the 5G, to work on the fiber. So we have a lot of work to do, because relying only on satellite is dangerous at country level, at sovereignty level. We saw that in several countries, including Ukraine itself, where the decision was taken outside of the country to disconnect everybody. This can happen to any country. This is just between brackets. From my side, I will finish just, I will come back to AI topic. And also, I have been here to Cape Verde several times, and the government have a vision to let Cape Verde be a digital hub for the region, which is really very good. But if we think to do it and taking charge of the AI development and the data development, there is one topic should be treated urgently, is energy. Energy is a key point in order to achieve the strategy. I'll just give you one example that happened last week. Do you know that UAE invested more than $100 billion to build data centers and cloud in France? Why France? Why not Portugal? Why not Germany? Why not Switzerland? Yes, it's just because France has nuclear electricity. Nuclear electricity is stable, doesn't depend on wars for gas, for oil, not depends on Russia, not depends on Ukraine, not depends on anything. Nuclear is there, it's stable, it's clean, and it's affordable. This is the only reason why data center investment happened in France. I don't say that we'll do nuclear here in Cape Verde, okay? But we have other nuclears. We have sun, we have wind, we have waves, but we need to build a strategy to have sustainable energy and stable and affordable energy if we would like to build the heart of the digital transformation in Cape Verde and export it on the region. Otherwise, it will be just a slogan. Thank you.
I mean, I've been in this telecom industry for quite a while, and I think it's an amazing business. I mean, I really enjoy it even after 25 years. It's really exciting, great people in it. I think one of the things I've learned also is that it's good to sleep at night, because this industry also has the ability to transform itself and look at things in a new way. I mean, just thinking about SMS, I mean, it's such an outdated service that has kind of found such a incredible new application. And I think a lot of things are like that. I think we live in an industry with 9 lives. It's always, when you throw it up in the air, it's always landing on its feet. So I'm very positive that whatever happens with satellites, with voice and all of that, suddenly new doors will open, new exciting opportunities coming up. We have technology, and I think it will be great for all of us for the next 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah, completely aligned with the panelists here. We are some of the concerns sharing with Jose also. That is the satellite, how that is going to turn out to the rest of the industry, how it's going to impact all of us, right? The whole ecosystem. That's a good question to have. There is a little bit of concern, as Adnan mentioned, to I think what you're leading to is the centralization of power. All of a sudden you have one entity, one person that's might be an individual, not a state, regulating who speaks, who doesn't speak, who's connect, who's not connect. That is concerning. But if you have competition, maybe that concern can at least slow down a little bit. So, but it's one very important point. But my concern and my motivation, I should say personally, and also I think the company that I'm representing as well, is really to diminish that digital gap that we have worldwide. So if everyone in the industry, that ecosystem, in the government can pitch in and help to make that a reality, that really what really motivates me as an individual and part of this industry. So that's it. Like a mission for us, for myself and for the company as well. So stop right there. Thank you.
You talk about mission and objectives, and my organization objective is to help our customers to make a better impact on the world. So that's my motivation every morning to achieve that. So thank you very much for your comments here and your insights. And I'll open up here to everybody who's been listening. Any questions you'd like to place? Now is your chance before we go to lunch. No? Okay, well, thank you very much for being here with us this morning. Enjoy lunch. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon. For those going back home, safe flights, and see you next year.